Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to the channel RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and welcome here. Hey, there's a new name I haven't seen before. Project Nexus. Hello there. Good morning, afternoon, good evening, or wherever you are in the world. Guys, today is Future Friday. Hey, what's up? The usuals are here. Thank you so much for being up at the crack of dawn if you are here in the States, anywhere in the on the edges of the Americas. Thank you for so much. Okay, so today's Future Friday, and Future Friday we talk about, well, everything in the future, from like the Victorian era all the way into the far future, where it's almost magic. It's almost a cyclical kind of cycle. But I have a special I have a special place in my heart for transhumanist theory, the armchair idea of talking about the future and technologies that much like our modern day would seem absolutely alien to people 300 years ago, thinking of what the future would be like 300 years from now if all the technologies we had existed. And of course, we have role-playing games that are about that very subject. Altered Carbon, The Expanse, of course, it has a television show. The Altered Carbon RPG is out, and it, of course, has a television series related to it. And Eclipse Phase, which doesn't have one, but is a highly awarded and highly regarded transhumanist role-playing game. So what does that have to do with our subject? Well, for those who don't know, this show is simulcast on Twitch, YouTube, and the audio is punched out to our own Discord server. You could join the Discord server, slide on the left, slide down to the boiler room, join us there. And the concept we were talking about Monday, and we talk about it all week long, unscripted and live, is that we were talking about power to the people. Basically, easy power, easy capabilities to your average citizen, okay? And how that's a great disruptor. And of course, you can't avoid that. It's almost a sub-genre of itself when it comes to science fiction and high technology and that kind of thing, where someone's looking for a fix and they get it through high technology. As a matter of fact, I've referenced a lot the Netflix show, at least Netflix here in the States, Project Power, where there's literally pills being sold on the street that grant you a lot of power. And today, it's more relevant than a little bit, and I think it will even get more so as we go along. So first, let me go into the chat. Project Nexus, good morning there. Cam, what's up? Andres Martin, like, hi. Deadman says, with the way technology is advancing, it would be more comparable to 300 years in the past is equal to 50 years in the future. Hell yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You can't beat that. Now, one of the movies that, of course, the title of, if you took a look at the thumbnail, is Upgrade, and there's a movie by the exact same name. So Tesla brings a point in there, says the character STEM only presents itself as a voice in the movie. The word STEM is Dutch for voice. I didn't know that. I did not. I thought STEM, well, I guess it's a double entendre. The English word STEM, it's like plant-like it's some an attachment of sorts, the roots leading down into something, and then of course when the plant grows, it has a stem-like feature to it, which kind of seems comparable to like your neural links or something. So for those who don't know, there's a movie. Hey, Red Dice, what's going on? Now, there's a movie called Upgrade, and it is a 2018 movie in which the movie, a simple synopsis is a gentleman living in the future. This is a future what is it called, near future movie, and the gentleman gets into an accident. It's not so much of an accident. There are like criminal elements around him, and through the course of events, his loved one, his partner dies, and he's left a quadriplegic. And he is both racked with guilt and pain and wants to enact revenge. But of course, his body cannot. It is out of his reach, to the point that he cannot even end his own life. And so he is offered a chance to use a bit of technology called STEM. Yep. And there's Tesla puts in STEM also stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. That is the STEM programs, to to get young people to go into the technological fields here, at least most notably here in the States. And this technology is basically a computer chip that's going to be inserted into his spinal cord, right in the back of his, underneath his medulla oblongata. And STEM allows him to walk. And then STEM becomes a whole lot more. And in the movie is a three-part movie. It's like in thirds. So the first third is the wonderment of technology and how technology could really advance us. And the protagonist is kind of us, where the protagonist even goes so far as to rebuilding old cars, which is like fixing muscle cars for like rich people in the far future, right? Where everything's electric or fuel cell or something like that. And then the second third of the movie is a revenge flick, right? He just gets basically allowed. STEM is like, do you mind if I take control? And he's like, help me, yes, take control. And then STEM starts to beat ass and using his body to, in a very unique robotic way, starts using like self-defense and martial arts and lethal attacks to take out his enemies. And then the last third of the movie is a horror movie, and I don't want to give too much away on that part of it. All right, so Cameron says, I feel like Adeladdles were invented there were Stone Age people talking about the addiction to technology. Look at them, can't throw spears like a normal person. Oh, okay. Okay. The analogy is that it feels like Stone Age people were saying people were getting addicted to Adeladdles, which are, if you guys don't know what those are, those were those sticks. It's a I'm putting up my hands like you can see it if you're listening. It's a stick about the length of your forearm with a hook at the end, and you would take a spear and it would fall into the little hook at the end of the stick. And so you would fling the stick, which would help you fling the spear, as opposed to, oh, I don't know, just grabbing the spear by the shaft and using your forearm to throw it, right? Yeah, Red Dice says, yeah, the ending of the film, geez, I found that horrifying. Yeah. Okay, so sure, easy fix, yeah. But then when you find out the plot of the movie and who the real antagonist or even what the real antagonist was and how that happened, you're just like, ooh, that's because the movie pulls you into a false sense of like self-importance. Like, oh man, if I had that, how badass would I be if I had a STEM? And one of the coolest features of the movie is the actor and actors portraying people whose body is not moving in a humanistic fashion, a very robotic fashion, while the personality and their facial expressions are acting as if their body's being moved in as a puppet and still being a badass in a fight. It's very unnerving, but very cool when you see it, especially when our hero, our protagonist in the flick, ends up having shall we say, has a challenge of equal stature and the conflict that happens there as well. And of course, all of this is in the trailer. The in the Red Band trailer, someone comes at him with a knife, and he's like, "Please put the knife down. Don't make me do it. This isn't going to go turn out good for you." And he splits the man's face open. It's like, what? Like a watermelon. Oh man. No, Cam, you're fine. You're fine. I get either A, typing, or B, using voice commands and all that kind. Dude, you're fine. Spell check, yeah, you're fine. You're fine. All right. So, how do we take like the movie Upgrade and like make roll this into like a tabletop RPG kind of thing? The first thing that comes to mind here is divorcing ourselves of being most tabletop games, we're the badasses, right? You've got player character options. Everyone's going shopping, looking for like, what's the best tech? How can I make my character great? And unfortunately, sometimes there are things in games that kind of subtly go over top of our heads. All right, and it's the idea that maybe we're not such special snowflakes as we think we are within the settings that we pretend to be special in. So, what I mean is that much like this average guy who gets this stem implant that turns him into a this killing machine simply because of downloading and reenacting fighting techniques online, uh, maybe your average person can get some or many of these like uh, implants and nanotechnology and biotechnology, and it could be given to them, and it could turn them into people that could very easily surpass the player characters. And imagine the player characters maybe going to like some kind of habitat, or a kind of like a dome city, a spinning habitat or something, and maybe there is a drug on the streets, or there is a black market engineer that's for very low cost is trying to experiment, granting people basically wish fulfilling or something, or the players arrive on a mining asteroid, and the mining asteroid union's been encouraging the workers, because they're going to be replaced by machines, to upgrade their bodies, in illicit but temporary bonuses, but long-term harmful effects. But much like the miners here today, at least here in the States, there's in the mountains of Appalachia, there are people who get black lung, and they're coal miners, and there's a bit of a morbid pride in being one of the people there. The same could be extended out into toxic atmospheres in on planetary um, surfaces, or space miners, an asteroid belt or something, where the everyone believes that they're going to be the one that's going to be able to get these implants or modifications or something removed from their body, but temporarily they're like, it's like the juicer. We brought up the juicer from Palladium Games, where you know literally in the character concept, oh, roll a d6, you're going to die between 2 and 7 years from now because of the the adrenal boosting that's flowing through the body. But people still, there is a pride in that, and that would be pretty interesting for player characters to be dropped in this place, and they're like, I'm still a badass. I'm Billy Badass rolling around with my gun that's like got a cord plugged into my temple that I can see through, and I've got like boosted reflexes. And the game master's like, these people, these average citizens are more often than not, better than you are. Another concept would be if STEM truly was a one-off, and of course, I don't want to give too much away in the movie if you haven't seen it and you really want to, which I highly regard. Please do it. But if STEM, is an AI that's like, you know what, I am up and I am out. Like, you thought you had me on like you know, buried in a server, being cooled by ocean waters or something off the coasts of Madagascar or whatever. And the AI is like, dude, I'm going to implant myself in a victim and I am out. And now the PC's got to go hunting down this AI or this chip, and the AI might start getting like allies or start copying itself or becoming like a hive mind as it starts defending itself against hunters because it knows people are hunting for it, or um, considering the AI might be so many, I don't know, quadrabytes of what's okay. I got to advance it. Um, so many hundreds of thousands of quintabytes of information that it would take too long for it to get, say, beamed off of Mars or Earth or something. And the PCs it's like a countdown to stop this AI from beaming itself out, because if it could beam itself away off the planetary surface for whatever reason, maybe it can then propagate out and just be truly horrible. And so maybe there's or maybe it tries to infect itself into the habitat that the peas are. There sure was a Quinto. Red Dog's like, Quintabytes, wasn't he Spock in a new Star Trek? Yeah, he sure was. I almost genetically built to be a Vulcan, right? Anyway, Cameron says there's an alchemist class in Pathfinder that I always thought should have some side effects. They inject themselves with mutagens that mutate them. Imagine people doing that with nanotech. Oh hells yes. Oh, Cam's laughing at my Zachary Quinto comment. Yeah, yeah, dude. Like, there are very few people that are. You look at him and you're like, yeah, don't bother getting a regular job. I know exactly what you're going to be doing in the future. Playing a Vulcan. Uh, Mama told him at 3 years old, yeah, my baby's going to be a Vulcan when he grows up. Anyway, but yeah, you're right, Cam. Like, first of all, as we talked about during the rest of the week, there's plenty of reasons why people would do that. Um, just like today, there are people who say play the lottery, or they there is a ever so slight chance they can get themselves out of a depressed situation, um, depressed economically or politically or socially. So people will roll the dice to see if they can get out of it. Um, Also, there's the thrill. People do. There are. We are inundated with people who are putting up their TikTok videos and their live videos of people doing crazy stunts, and some people are thrill seekers, or some people want to be enamored by other people who are thrill seekers, or some people do it for the attention because they feel like thrill seeking is an attention grabbing thing to do, so why don't I do it? So injecting yourself with like black market nanotech or something, I it's a no brainer. It's already done, right? Botox, anyone? Right? It's already being done, and most assuredly has already been done in the past. Shall we say injecting someone with leeches or mercury? Anyone? Opioids, opium. Our founding forefathers here in the states, many of them like to get themselves some opium and party down. So yeah, whether they knew that's what they were doing or not, it was a truism. So yeah, the average people injecting themselves with nanotech, no brainer. Which brings to mind, if you are a game master and you're trying to come up with some kind of like adversary, an equal and opposite opponent for your PCs, because science fiction, a lot of times we don't have the same tropes to pull on as in fantasy. Fantasy, we've got dragons and orcs and monsters, a ton of monsters from mythology. Medusa and the Gorgon and the Minotaur and two-headed giants and krakens and hydras. We've got a lot of that. But when it comes to science fiction, we've got cyborgs, maybe some, I don't know, some roided out people. Maybe we've got some robots, right? But yeah, yeah. Deadman says Zachary Quinto played Siler in the series Heroes. What a great series! What a great, which Heroes is kind of related to what we're talking about, where sure, there are random people waking up with these uh, the confluence of science and mysticism has come together, and these people are waking up. They are becoming the heroes, special powered people in the world. Maybe there's something like that in the far future. Oh, we can't forget uh, psionics, scions, mental abilities is a trope that deals with the far future. And if you could inject yourself with something or get an implant that opens up your awareness, or activate something in the human brain that allows you to access those capabilities, I can't imagine that if there's a slight chance people are going to get into it. So, yep. Andrews Martin says nothing to lose. Imagine someone agreeing to implant his brain in a high-grade military robot, mech, or vehicle. Yeah, and like Red Dice Diary says, a third eye implant. Yep. Hey, if you've got nothing to lose, uh, criminals that have been sentenced to like life in prison or worse in a far future setting, maybe they're like, you know what? I've got nothing to lose. You know what? Just to plant my brain, I would rather serve in your hypercore military service than to be in this virtual world that's going to put me into boredom for 1,000 years in relative time or something, right? So yeah, or who's to say someone's not using human brains to boost their robotic military units, even though we don't know that they're human brains inside of them until we find out it's too late and that somebody's been doing this. Yeah, why not? Or hey, we're talking about transhumanist plots and technology. People could agree to have their brains removed, their bodies could be put on ice, and it's like, you know what, you got to serve me for 77 years and you'll get your body back. And they're like, all right, if you're going to forgive my loans, okay, let's do it. I'll get my body back, I'll get to retire, no big deal, right? What is 77 years? I could do that on my, I could do that in my sleep. And of course, it never works out, right? Red Dice says, well, think of people nowadays who risk prison by acting as drug mules for criminal groups. What if they were smuggling black market tech that was implanted, then removed at their destination? Ah, methinks someone has gone back to the 80s um, with um, William Gibson's Neuromancer, Keanu Reeves. It is portrayed that this character in the movie, the Neuromancer, was a character who, to get black market information from one place to another without putting it online, because there was just too many people out there, hackers stealing things. So there were these underground agents that would have they had a brain implant, and you could download the information in their brain, use a visual code that would lock the information in their brain so they would never know what it is. And then whoever's on the other end of delivering that information had a visual code that would unlock, it would download, be stored, and then unlock, and the carrier couldn't be able to access it. Mind you, the movie's really dated. It's really dated. But one of the concepts was that the downloading of the information in the brain was so terrible that it would start to bleed out, and it could, make your nose bleed and your ears and cause brain aneurysms and stuff like that. Today we know that that's probably not how it would work, but I like the concept of it, right? Where instead of like a drug mule, maybe there's like packets of, maybe people become farm animals. using pH instead of the letter F in farm, that people are themselves the drug that is the mule. So there's a gland that produces some kind of like illicit drug or something, and the lifespan is short to get through customs to be one of these people who has this gland that actually biologically makes some kind of illicit drug or what have you. Yeah, that would be pretty cool though. So thanks for the fuel there, Red Dice. Anyway, Deadman says, Cylon fighter craft in the remake of Battlestar Galactica were flesh brains inside a machine shell. I forgot about that. Yeah, that's right. That's right. In the reboot, retelling, requel, I don't know what you call it, of Battlestar Galactica, which was a great show up until it fell off the rails at the end. Yeah, there were flesh brains inside of those spacecraft. There were no pilots. Well, there were no pilots in the classic sense, and then it kind of makes you wonder, like, where'd the brains come from? Like, did they grow them in a petri dish or something, or what? What's that about? Cameron says people already go too already go too far off exotic places, seeking more psychic power. They sure do. Yes, they do. People spend it's probably $1 billion industry of the idea of going off to exotic places to delve deeper into yourself, to expand your awareness out into the universe, right? Anyway, Cameron goes on to say they go to the Amazon for stuff, and sometimes people search out a certain cactus for stuff. Yeah, licking frogs and all that kind of business. Hell's yes. Oh yeah, yeah. It's an international business of even if for just a little bit of time, for just a moment, a bit of clarity, satori, as it were, to achieve enlightenment, just to feel that, and people seek that out in many ways. In many ways, even if it means chewing on a coca plant leaf. Andrew Martin says, or copying yourself. There was a game, Soma, about that. A person could copy his brain, make copies of it, and install it in robots. And the catch was, who is the real you? Oh, dude, we Future Friday. Come on, man. We talk about that all the time. We got making copies of yourself and who's the real you. And that's one of, if you're outside tabletop RPGs, that's where the transhumanist friction comes from, because if we have the ability to technologically copy ourselves, and since we don't know which one is the real us, are all the copies fake and just a very high fidelity version of technology, and they have no soul, and so making a copy of yourself is this soulless being who thinks it's alive? Or are we literally making more people artificially and imbuing them with a soul? And in that case, we are becoming unto like gods, and that's where the contention comes in, right? If you make a copy of yourself and then implant into another biological body, you've just created another human being. And yeah, and that can get problematic and get out of hand, which becomes a problem in terms of functional immortality versus people who are spiritual and want to pass on, or should they pass on? Or if they don't pass on, how will they ever see their loved ones who have passed on? So on and so forth, right? Yep. Red Dice Diary says they used to do that SIP thing with the shadow ships from Babylon 5. Each had an altered psychic person in the center of them acting as the CPU of the ship. Yeah, I've read a lot of science fiction stories about like half psychic, half, I'll use the word insane, although I don't mean that in a derogatory manner, but within context of the science fiction, there's a person who is like the psychic that allows them to pilot ships through wormholes. Dune was probably not the first, probably the largest cult sci-fi thing with the guild navigators using the spice melange to psychically allow them to navigate through spaceways and things like that. So hell yeah, hell yeah, it would be popular. And what I think is great about it, especially when it comes to like science fiction role playing, is the player characters may possibly never know who their or what the capabilities of their adversary is unless they do some investigation. You know, if um, you know, let's God forbid that there's a habitat where everyone wears or has an implant. Okay, there is a black orb that is implanted into people that in this habitat, and it keeps them locked into like the local mesh, the local internet, and operates basically like your cell phone. And it looks like this little black knob that's like on people's temple or the side of their neck or the back of their neck or maybe even on their wrist or something. And like in Eclipse phase, there's people have a what's known as a muse. It's basically your cell phone. It's your Google or Siri or Cortana. You know, it's your Google, and you ask it to do things, and it does things for you. No big deal. Then PCs come in, they act like Billy badasses, and then the antagonist goes, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to activate every agent that's of mine. As a matter of fact, most of the people have one of these little black orbs stuck on their bodies. Maybe I'm going to just activate them, right? So now the PCs are looking around and they're looking at this in the spinning habitat. Maybe it's like a spindle or hollowed out asteroid or something, and they're like, wait a minute, okay, so the population is over 100,000, and any one of them could be a potential adversary to us. We need to get the hell up out of here now, right? So that's my point when it comes to like using technology. Like you could really surprise your player characters with like, you know, maybe the player characters themselves are using some bit of acquired technology, and they're like, you mean that wristy thing that I put on might I might become controlled by them? Get it off of me, you know. And I gotta watch out for that. Deadman says Warhammer 40k uses special psychers called navigators to travel through the warp. They have a mutation that gives them a third eye that will kill anyone they look at with that eye. Yeah, I'm not a big Warhammer 40k lore person, and this is a perfect example of why why I'm not. Because some of it is pretty like, ugh, that's hideously awesome, and that's I guarantee you that's what you were referring to, Red Dice. Yeah, and but why not? Why not have like a mutation or a maybe humanity has found some kind of alien um, biological system or something that people are using to modify their bodies temporarily, or hell, player characters are going to find things like that too, right? What if a player character was? If you told a player, "Hey, here's some untested technology, but it's going to give you these 12 upgrades or something like that," you know, a player character is going to jump head over heels for that, right? Players do that all the time. As a matter of fact, if we go back to Dungeons and Dragons, like why would anybody want to be a warlock? Like why would you want to, considering the considering the minimal benefit to the massive drawback that a life like that would have. Thank you, Dead Man. Ah, to gaze into the warp is to look into the abyss. To understand insanity itself is to become insane. Worst of all is the knowledge that while you are gazing upon it, the warp is looking back at you. Yep, that's a, you know, what is it? That is a Cthulhuoid thing. If you look to if you look into the abyss looks too deeply into the abyss looks back at you. Um, oh yeah. Red Dice Diary says implanted things could also be used for sinister social purposes. Yep. like in Logan's Run, where everyone has an implant that goes off when you hit 30 years of age, and you report to the termination booths. Yeah, speculative fiction. And in transhumanist games, you could actually take all of those speculative fiction novels and books and TV shows like Twilight Zone and movies like Logan's Run or Soylent Green and literally sprinkle them like seasoning throughout your solar system. Who's to say there isn't a habitat that runs like Logan's Run? Or who's to say there isn't another habitat that's based around the movie Gattaca, where the people with who are genetically superior are at the top positions, and the genetic invalids are at the bottom of the social ladder. Or Red Dice is like, not sure I'd want to sprinkle Soylent Green as seasoning. Yeah. Oh, it's like the parsley and sage. It's made out of people. It's made out of people. Running down the street. Yeah. Yeah. Who's to say there isn't a habitat that's like, they're dumping people into blenders and turning them into Slurpee drinks for later. Um, why not? What's another one? A speculative fiction movie, Out of Time. Maybe there's a place where everyone has a countdown timer on their forearm, and literally there's no money, but everything has a value of time. And what are you willing to? How much time are you willing to give up to get a thing? And what are you willing to do, or for someone else, for them to give you their time? And when your time runs out, you're dead. Yep. Tesla Ranger puts in the quote, that's it. Nietzsche, Friedrich Nietzsche. Whoever fights monsters should see. Sorry. Whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process he does not become a monster. And if you gaze long enough into the abyss will gaze back into you. A rare warning from a lot of F Nietzsche writings. F period. Well, I guess the other F works too. Yeah, the movie Upgrade is great if you haven't seen it. If you have seen it, or heck, you could probably pop on YouTube and get all the really best scenes from it. But I will tell you that as amazing as the first 2/3 are, there's a reveal in the last third of the movie. It wasn't revealed in the best way, but the reveal is upwards of the greatest reveals from equal to the movie Her and the movie Ex Machina, where you're like, oh, this is awesome, and then you start scratching your head and you're like, wait a minute, whoa, this thing isn't human, and there's a reason why this everything came about the way it did, and you're like, what? So can't suggest that anymore. Anyway, guys, just to let you know, normally we go about an hour ish, but I do have to cut the time down. Real life takes place, so the show has to be cut down to preferably a half hour, maybe 45 minutes at the most, just because I've got real life. So yeah, unfortunately. Soul Solritep. I hope I'm pronouncing your avatar name there. Anyway, Soul says, are Eclipse Phase and Altered Carbon really different? Do you think there needs to be separate tabletop RPGs for both? They are different. So since it's slightly off topic, but I'll grant you this just because we're getting to the end. Eclipse Phase is more horror and more body horror, intellectual horror, and technological horror in the way the game is set up, even the mechanics. So it's a lot more with sanity loss and the horror of what's out beyond you and the horror of who am I as a human, where human is in quotes because you really don't know what human is, right? So that's what that is. Altered Carbon is far more cyberpunk, where it's upper class, low class, no middle class. You're either surviving by your wits and hoping to get spun up yet again if somebody takes you out. As a matter of fact, in Altered Carbon, there's a greater chance that your cortical stack's going to get blown out and destroyed, or I don't know, taken by an adversary and used as a paperweight or something. So Altered Carbon is quite a bit embraces the cyberpunk of it, whereas Eclipse Phase pretends to have a little bit of a nicer sheen on the surface, and it's far evil underneath, and the mechanics are a little bit different. But now that I've said that to you, there, Solvertep, I will say that honestly, you could play either in either setting. The Alter Carbon setting spans a lot, hundreds of years and more planets, whereas like Eclipse Phase is relegated to our solar system. If you exclude the Pandora gates and the exoplanets, the exoplanets, okay, uh, instead of space travel, you have these Pandora gates, which is basically wormholes, and you step through a stargates, and you step from one place to another. But other than that, they're similar in that way. I think you would. I would ask my players what they would want or what you're interested in, and then I would pick either game. Altered Carbon is far more gritty, streetwise. Um, Noir is very noir, where it's like it's either always raining or it's about to rain or it just rained. um, the sun doesn't shine. There's criminality behind every corner, that kind of thing. Whereas Eclipse Phase deals, it comes across as like, it just comes across as slicker, cleaner on the outside, and then the darkness is on the inside. So that's my particular take. Um, Altered Carbon does. Okay, yeah. You know what? I'm there with you. I haven't read or listened to the Altered Carbon book series, which we have a person on the show that's a diehard Altered Carbon book series individual. Die hard. I bring it up and he blasts me, which is fun. Um, but yeah, the Eclipse Phase, the second edition. I'm sorry. There's a book for first edition, and second edition cleaned up character creation, but there's so many options in the Eclipse Phase RPG that it can get a little bit daunting to do it first edition wise, point by. It's pretty daunting. But other than that, the game system, percentile, roll high, roll low, it's pretty easy. Second edition, they changed it into like they changed the crit they changed the crit realm into like 33 and 66, but I'm not explaining it correctly. I'm sorry. Um, Eclipse Phase uses percentile. Altered Carbon uses the classic 6 dice, with the D4 being the best and the D12 being the worst. So you want to roll low in Altered Carbon, and dice represent your character statistics and abilities. So a one, you want to get a singularity. You want to roll a one in Altered Carbon on a die. So if you roll a D8, you have less chance of rolling a one, which is a crit, rather than a D4 and rolling a one, which, percentiles, percentage chances, and blah blah blah. So yeah, that's how I would put it. Both of them, and I think both games are hard to explain to player characters. Sorry, both game settings are hard to explain to players because we're so used to having wrapped ourselves around Dungeons and Dragons and all of its iterations that have spread out from that central webbing. Um, and so I've done videos. I'll probably maybe we'll go into it next week, about the idea like your body isn't your own, your memories may not be your own, you might as well. Some players are like to hoard stuff. Like I'm gonna go shopping and get all the best technology, and it's like, yeah, the minute you beam your brain, your consciousness off of one planet to another habitat, all that shopping you did is worthless, because now you're just a brain, a psychological entity living somewhere else, downloaded into a cortical stack, which is then sleeved into a body. So all your shopping was for naught. So that's very difficult to embrace when some of the best stories are the game master literally telling you that what you thought was your personality and your background isn't real. Yeah, you thought you were 38 years old? Nope, you're actually 12 minutes old. Yes, yeah, Soul Rep, you're saying, can't you buy experiences and knowledges, like, skills? Of course you can. That's that's you, you, you are what your brain is in these games, right? So like the Altered Carbon television show, right? Anthony Mackie is an actor, but he's just the body. Who's the Oh, I forgot the actor's name. Anyway, William Lee. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, I know kung fu. Yep, but there's come on. There's players who are like, I'm gonna have my body. I'm gonna get a cyber arm, and I'm gonna get boosted reflexes, and I'm gonna buy a rail gun, and I'm gonna buy. And you're like, don't bother doing that, dude. Don't do that, or do that, or anything in between. Like, don't do that. And yeah, um, dude, Soul. Let me give you a suggestion before we get out of here. One is, if you're bored and or you have the time, go back in the playlist. I've got actually two really long playlists of like basically old videos like this where we talk about Ultra Carbon, Eclipse phase, and check those out. And then I would also suggest, like, just hang around, dude. Come on, Future Fridays, and just hang around. You're here live. Just join in live if you can. You know, yeah. Like Tesla says, I know kung fu. Stem is like, no, I know kung fu. You're just along for the ride. Yeah, yeah. That was. Oh man, the last third of that movie was a little bit brutal, because you're like, whoa. Yeah, you think you're a badass, but you're not. So whatever. Anyway, guys, went a little too long there, but whatever. Thank you, Soul, and everybody else. Cam, Tess, Deadman, Red Dice Diaries, always popping in, and A. Martin. Thank you very much for popping in, and everyone who I have not mentioned or is lurking in the background. Please don't hesitate. Like, share, subscribe, follow. Spread the word of the channel. I would really appreciate it. And if I can, I hope I'm giving you a great experience. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for watching. Have a great one. I'll see you Monday morning. Bye.